everyone, welcome back to my Earth Friendly Kitchen. This is Maria. Today I'm going to be making some fresh homemade raviolis. They'll be stuffed with a zucchini and ricotta, mozzarella stuffing. They're going to be delicious for a dinner party that I'm having later for some friends. So first thing we have to do is get the dough ready because that needs time to rest. So we're just going to jump into it. We're going to be using, the ratio is 2 cups of flour to 3 eggs to start. So I just recently learned, I should say in the last few months, that when you spoon flour, a lot of times you should actually spoon it into your cup and give it a little shake. You should not be like dipping your cup in like I always used to. So apparently it helps the dough stay lighter. Oh, that's a little bit more, but that's okay. So 1 cup, and we're gonna do this. Now I'm using it's called tipo OO. It's a flour that's pretty common that you can find, but this particular brand I'm using is a product of Italy. I happen to be very gluten sensitive, and for the flour that's made in Italy, I think it has a lot to do with the way it's processed or grown, and it doesn't bother me as much. So I always use this particular brand or a brand like it made from Italy when I make homemade breads or pastas or anything like that. So I'm just creating a little well here, my 2 cups of flour. If it's a little over, it's fine. You know, if your dough winds up being a little too dry because there's too much flour, you could always add like a tablespoon of water or oil to it. It's fine. So just creating this little well here for my eggs. Now the eggs are room temperature. They've been sitting out for a little bit because that helps it just bind a little bit better. So we're gonna just crack them right into the well, just like that. And this can get a little messy. We try to keep it in the well as much as we can, but sometimes it overspills just like that, and that's okay. That is okay. You know, cooking's messy, life is messy. Gonna add a little bit of olive oil here, about a tablespoon or so, and about a teaspoon of salt. And I'm using the coarse kosher salt, but I'm just gonna start to try to whisk it and try to keep it in. I have this little guy here as much as I can to break those yolks up in there and get the flour going. And we'll get all that escaped in there, I promise. So a lot of people shy away from making their own homemade pasta. They think it's, you know, complicated or, you know, too fancy or whatever the case may be. But honestly, it is, you know, pretty simple to make the dough. And, you know, if you're, you know, raviolis are a little bit more involved, obviously, because they're stuffed. But if you're making just a regular straight linguine or spaghetti or, you know, something like that, it's pretty straightforward. You know, pappardelle, you just roll it out and you cut it. You know, that's about it. So you see how now the flour is combining with the egg here. I'm just going to start scraping that in. If you don't have a scraper like this, it's pretty imperative to making pasta. See how I'm just going to get all that back into the flour. But you could use another fork or a butter knife, perhaps, if you don't have a scraper at home. But they're pretty inexpensive. A lot of them will come with like other baking kits or something that you get. But we're just going to get all of that. And once it starts to really come together, I'm going to start getting my hands dirty, because that's what this is all about. Scrape. Now, obviously, you want to work on a clean surface. Make sure your countertop or whatever it is that you're working on is clean. Kind of scrape off all that egg because, you know, you don't want that going in your dough. And then we're just gonna start to form this together. And like I said, if you notice that your dough is a little too dry, it'll be too crumbly if that happens. But give it a few minutes, really try to work it in, because as it comes together, like at first it might seem a little dry. See how like all these little pieces are coming off? But once you really work it together, you'll see that they incorporate really well. That's a sign that the dough is nice and hydrated. So I'm just gonna take this extra off my hands here. And then if it is a little too dry, you can add a little water. If it's a little too wet, add a little flour, right? Baking depends a lot on your location. Sometimes, you know, if you're in high altitudes or humid climates, or if it's very hot outside, cold outside, you know, baking any kind of dough, actually, or creating a dough, I should say, and baking will be affected by that. So seeing this is just so nice coming together, and you really want to work it. You get a little bit of an arm workout doing this, because this is what's going to activate the gluten in the dough. And it's going to give you really nice chewy bite when you get into your pasta. So that's what you want. Okay. And you just see it just comes together really nicely like that. Okay, and you want it to be, you know, a little bit sticky, but firm like that. Okay, and that's it. That's our dough. We're gonna let this rest. Some people, I should say a lot of people, wrap this in saran wrap to let it rest. I should say we try our best to eliminate single-use plastics in our home. So I just use a bowl. I get a nice fresh towel. Oh, this one's for Christmas. It's not Christmas yet, but it'll do. And I stuff it and I just kind of surround it and cover it up and put it aside. So I'm going to put it aside. I'm going to clean up my station. We're going to get ready to come back and make the filling. All right, see you in a few. Okay, welcome back. Our dough is resting right now. We are all ready to make our filling for the pasta, and we're going to start with the zucchini, because that also needs a little bit of time to soak. So I've already done about a half of a large zucchini. I'm just using my large grater here to get the consistency that I want, because I want it to be a little bit of a bite when people go in. And I go all the way down to the rind, and I just leave that rind out here. And I put it into a cheesecloth lined bowl. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of salt inside here and give it a mix, because that's going to help kind of start to get the water to come out of the zucchini itself. And we want the water to come out of the zucchini because this is going to go into our filling. And anytime you put something with high water content inside, it could steam inside your dumpling or your ravioli or whatever it is that you're making, and you don't want that. You don't want it to steam, because then it'll burst open. I hate when that happens. I hate it, because then you don't get the filling, and that's the good stuff. So then in another bowl, I'm going to do about 2.5 tablespoons of cream cheese. It's been softened. It's just been out and resting. And I'm going to do about a half a cup of ricotta cheese. There. And I'm going to grate some of this extra zucchini off, some mozzarella. This is about a half a pound of fresh mozzarella. Now you could use the other type of block mozzarella, whatever mozzarella you want that's, you know, on sale or whatever. I just like the way this mozzarella melts. So we're just going to grate the whole thing in there. And I'm going to get those big chunks out because you want it to be able to be mixed well for your filling. Now this recipe will make about 24 to 30 or so raviolis, maybe even more depending on the size of your cutter. So you can make like little mini raviolis. You can make raviolos. So raviolos are large, one giant ravioli in the middle of your plate. which I always find fascinating, and I feel like one day I'll do that, but I feel like that's very like Michelin star, you know, something like that to do that's just fancy. And oh, looks like that cheese is pretty incorporated, so I don't have to worry about that. And then I'm gonna do about a quarter cup or so of Parmesan in there as well. I'm gonna do the fine side of my grater. Now you don't have to, again, do the fresh Parmesan like this. You could do grated all the way, like the fine grate Parmesan. You'll do a quarter cup of that, or you know, you could buy yours. I feel like this keeps a lot better. You actually don't even need to refrigerate it for a while. It's you know, the process of aging cheese keeps it from getting like moldy or whatever, you know. I mean, obviously if you left it out long enough, I'm sure it would get moldy, but that's pretty much it for the inside of the filling plus the zucchini. So we're gonna bring that back now, and I'm going to wring out all that liquid. You see all that juice? You do not want that inside your ravioli because it'll steam it open. It'll pop it open. And it also helps it when it's cooking because, you know, these raviolis are not going to take very long to cook in the water, in the boiling water, because they are they're homemade. It's not dried pasta. Now you could make these ahead of time and refrigerate them if you wanted to, but you know, to save yourself time on the day of a dinner party like we're having today. But I would suggest, you know, I mean, even then it's not going to take as long as you would for regular dry pasta. You're not going to get still the same length of time. I'm just going to put in here, I'm going to add about a teaspoon of basil, about a teaspoon of oregano. Now I'm matching the flavor profile of a sauce, like a traditional marinara sauce. The sauce that I'm going to be using has basil and parsley, so I'm just adding a little bit to the inside just to kind of match the flavors of that. And I'm going to do a little bit of onion powder here. I'm sorry, garlic powder. And just a teeny bit of salt, because you're going to salt your water right when you make your pasta. And I'm just going to mix all of this up. Oh, that reminds me, I should put my pasta water on and get that ready when we're ready to boil our macaronis. So you just want to make sure you're spreading that cream cheese evenly and the ricotta cheese evenly throughout, because you want every bite to have that real creamy flavor. Now obviously the mozzarella and the Parmesan are going to melt in with everything else as it cooks, but you just want to get a really beautiful filling, really nice and flavorful here. I'm just going to take a little pinch to see. It's perfect. So let me go throw my pot on for boil, and I'll be right back to start the pasta. Okay. And so now we are ready. We want to make sure we're on a clean, dry surface again, because we're going to be working with our dough here. And we're also going to throw a bit of flour onto the countertop, not too much. We're just going to flour it so that the dough doesn't stick. And we're also going to put a little bit on this plate, because this is where I'm going to put my raviolis when they are done. And I'm also going to put a little bit in my pasta dough maker. So this is an attachment that you can get for a stand mixer. If you don't have one, that's okay. You can totally roll this out by hand. I've done that before someone gifted me with this beautiful mixer. So I'm just going to take our dough out here. Nice, and look at that stretch. That's what you want. You want that stretch. So I'm just going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to cut it in half again because I want to have workable pieces. And you want to keep this covered while you're working with your pieces because you don't want it to dry out. So as you're working, not that it should take that long, but I'm just going to kind of roll this up a little bit. And I am going to start by hand rolling. You know, ravioli, this would literally be the motion that you need, right? You just want to flatten this out nice and long if you're using a hand roller. But for the mixer, if you have one, you're going to start it at a low setting, only on about a 1 or a 2. And you're going to have your pasta set to a 1 here. That's the thickest setting just to get the dough going. And this is just to help it. Now we're going to run this through a couple of times with each number. And the higher the number gets, the thinner the pasta gets. Now for ravioli, you want it to be fairly thin because you are going to, you know, have 2 layers. So you don't want to have 2 thick layers, right, of pasta. You know, certain other pastas you make, you know, you can get away with making them a little bit thicker. But for raviolis, you want them to be a little bit thin. So that's a good lesson to have even when you're rolling it out by hand. So this is going to get nice. It's just going to keep getting longer and longer. Now, this recipe, like I had mentioned, so that was a 2. I'm going to put it at a 4 now. This recipe I mentioned earlier is going to make about 24 to 30 or 32 raviolis, depending on how big your cutter is, how big you're making the raviolis. You can make a lot more smaller ones as well, but excuse me, that also depends on, like I said, the size of your cutter. I'm just using a regular circular cookie cutter. You can use square. You can do whatever shape you want, actually. Get cute with it. You know, if you have kids, do star cutouts, whatever. And I'm just going right from a 4 to a 7 because it's thin enough that it will not break. That's the concern. If you go too fast, that your dough, like if you go too thick to too thin, that your dough will actually tear, and you don't want that. And I'm not pulling with this hand. I'm allowing the dough thinner. What is this called even? I mean, a pasta maker, I call it. But, you know, thinning the dough out. I let it just push it through, right? I'm not pulling. I'm just guiding it so that it doesn't fall. So do you see how nice and thin that's getting? It's pretty much translucent. You can see my hands through the dough. And this is again on a setting of 7. So this is where we're going to end. Okay. All right. So we're going to do this here. We're actually going to cut here and make this into 2 sheets. Okay. Perfect. Let's shut this off for now. Now for demonstration purposes, I'm only going to do 6 because I want to show you what they look like. But I'm gonna, you know, I don't want to make all the macaroni right now. My guests aren't here, you know, for dinner. I'm gonna make them fresh when they come. So this will be, you know, but like I said, it does make a good, you know, 24 to 30 or so of these. You want to take a tablespoon of filling. Now this will also depend on the size of your cutter. If you have a smaller cutter, you use less filling. So you want to get it nice and flat. Just create this little dome, and you want to put them at about 1.5 to 2 inches apart or so, and just space them out nice and even, nice little mounds. And you want to give enough space because you're going to leave a little bit on the edge, right, of the ravioli so that you can seal it like a pocket. You want to have a nice good seal so that it doesn't open up in the boiling water. Okay, there's 5. Actually, we'll move these guys over just a little bit to get our 6 in here. All right, and obviously the end don't have to have 2 inches on the ends. Okay. All right, now we just take our other piece of dough and lay it right on top, just like that. Now you could put like water or egg wash in between the layers if you wanted to help it stick better, but I find that this dough sticks pretty well, so I don't do that because I think it's just an extra step, and why waste an egg? Although I would probably just use water. And you want to try to push down around your filling to get a lot of the air out, just like steam, right? If we let the zucchini hold all that moisture in, if we get a lot of air inside the pocket, it will explode in your pot. So we're just going to cut these guys out, and if they're not perfect, that's okay. They're homemade, right? Things that are homemade are not always perfect. It's called the human touch. So we're just gonna cut them out, nice little circles. And then the excess dough, you can actually pull away, and you can reball this, reform it, and run it through, and it's gonna give you more. So I'm just gonna put it in our pot here for now, so that it doesn't dry out. But then you want to just work your dough, and you can flatten your filling out a little bit, right? But you want to give it that nice round ravioli shape. So you want to make it nice and thin. Just make sure a lot of that air is out. And you can see the beautiful seasonings coming through the thin, translucent dough. Now, when you make dough, you can actually add like fresh herbs and stuff to the dough itself, and when it rolls out, it's this beautiful, layers of herbaceousness. Is that a word? I know it's a word, but is it a word for pasta? I don't know, but it's really good. And don't worry about this flour. When you put it, when you take them off, you just shake off if you have any extra or excess, I should say, before you drop it in the water. And then, because you can see these are pretty sticky, and I'm just closing these up. Now again, because these are super fresh, they're only going to take a few minutes to cook up in the water. So, get ready to get them going. Now, all right, so those are our 6 raviolis, and you would just literally repeat. Just keep going until you run out of dough, run out of filling, or make enough for whatever you need. If you only use part of the dough for the pasta, you can wrap this up or put it in a freezer safe container and freeze the dough and use it for another day. So if you don't need as many raviolis or as much pasta as this makes, you can freeze it. It'll freeze for at least a couple of months and stay really well. And then just make sure it defrosts all the way. You might have to work it a little bit to warm up the gluten again before you make the pasta the next time. But it could definitely be frozen, and so can the filling. You can just freeze that as well, even together. Find a way to put them together so that's what it's meant for. So we're going to take this over. I have some boiling water over here, and we're going to get them in the pot and see how they come out. So we just want to, like I said, shake off the extra. You want to get this right into your pot of boiling water, and they will sink initially, but as they cook, as they're getting close to being ready, they'll start to float. actually. And I know I've mentioned this before in other videos, but this is like the best thing to have as a spider. They're very inexpensive for the most part, you know, and it just helps you get those things out of the water, especially if you're doing batches into boiling water. Like if you're making a regular like whole box of pasta or whole box of macaroni, you just take it out and you dump it, right? Dump out the water. You don't need it anymore. But for something like this, you don't want to crowd the water. So when you're making more than one batch, then you'll want to put them in, and this is just obviously very helpful so that you don't have to empty the water and reboil every batch. So you see how they're coming to the top now, really starting to come here. I know that they're getting nice and delicious. These will only take about 2 to 3 minutes because, again, the pasta dough is just so fresh and awesome. The prep time for this dish is a little bit lengthy, right? But the payoff is just awesome. And it really is not so much, the prep time is not so bad, it's the resting time, right? You have to wait. It's a wait. It's a test in patience, if you will. So these look pretty good. Gonna just shake off the excess water. Shake that off. Oh, got stuck in my spider. Okay, shake that off. All right. They might look a little bit wrinkly, not, you know, perfectly round or perfectly square, whatever shape you're using, but the human touch is an incredible thing to have on a meal like this, because you know somebody put their love and their soul into their dish. So this is what they look like now. Really, just by themselves, they're good enough. Really delicious, but I do have a little bit of sauce here that I'm gonna add to the recipe. I made this sauce from scratch as well. You can find that on another video that we'll be posting, or have already posted. I can't remember which one we did first. But that's just so beautiful. Just look like that. I'm gonna get a fork here. Taste. And cut into this so you can see. So just cut in. See how nice it just folds out, and just really melty, gooey, delicious deliciousness here. Okay. Now the zucchini is going to give it an extra depth of texture. It's not going to be crunchy, right? It's going to cook a little bit, and the salt, when you had the water come out, also softened it up. Everything just comes together so nicely, and you do have a little bit of that snap from the zucchini, but it's not like a hard crunch. You know, it just really, even though the cheese is very melty and the pasta is very soft, it just comes together really nicely with that, and just adds another depth of texture. So hope you enjoy this recipe. I can't wait to make the rest for my friends later on tonight, and I hope you try it out for your family and friends as well. And if you do, comment below, let me know how it came out. Otherwise, you can like and subscribe to my channel for more recipes like this. Hope you have a great rest of your day. See you later.